The Notarial Archives hold a collection of about 600 years of uninterrupted history, and that's why they are so special. Basically, every person from each strata of the society went to the notary, from the slave, the farmer, the nobleman, the bishop, the grandmaster. Therefore, you have a representation of the whole of society, actually held between the beautiful bindings of these volumes. Whoever comes to do research here has a different perspective from other archives, in the sense that these are not like the archives of the order, where you have the ruler who is actually drawing up his own documents. Here, the people are making history. Therefore, it's the voice of the people. And not only the voice of the people, but we have the voice of people on the margins of society, like I said, slaves, for example. Women, where are women in our history? They have a voice here. You can study the history of women through the legal persona they had in different times. So the Notarial Archives are called the mother of all archives, because they hold this beautiful treasure representing all of our society.
I practically research Maltese corsairs at the Notarial Archives, where we're practically uncovering virgin territory when it comes to information about these communities that were living on our island a few hundred years ago. And sometimes you realize how relative they are to our time. Few people know that a lot of the Maltese corsairs towards the end of the 18th century were involved with the Russian fleet, which was attacking Turkey. It was the Ottoman Empire back then, when Russia was claiming that she was defending the Orthodox Christians of the Eastern Mediterranean. And here you have it today with what's happening with Putin and Syria and what have you. What the archives have done is given us the color to our history pages. When it comes to the corsairs, of course, there has been a lot of research done before me. I am not reinventing the wheel. It's just building on what there is. But now we are proud to say that I can tell you who the wives of the corsairs were, who they were married to, how did they fight, what was the problem, what were the problems at home, and how would he refer to his wife. A gentleman, well, it's not that he wasn't a gentleman if he wrote this, but he wrote to his wife, Il Hanzir taqtalu dembu Hanzir yibqa, because she would not give him money to be released from slavery in Tunis. You get these snippets of everyday life, and once you look at them, you suddenly realize these are so real, but we are 200 years apart.
Of course, my research will focus on funeral rituals. I'm looking at the wills at the Notarial Archives. Most of the documents have never been researched before, and I'm looking at wills in order to produce information about how the Maltese were obsessed with this idea of death. In most of the cases, wills produce how the people wanted their funerals to be. So first of all, the archives, as I said before, most of the resources have never been researched before. So that's already a new way of looking at things from a different perspective. Unfortunately, at times we tend to look at the political, if I may say so, side of history, whereby we look at the order of how the order was managing the country, or how did the knights first. Perhaps we look at the, let's say, buildings, the architecture. However, if we look at the social history, we're looking at the history of the Maltese, which it's important to look at how the Maltese were living during the hospitallary period.
When we set out to actually do something about the archives, it was in 2004. The archives were in a pitiful state, and unfortunately not much was being done to preserve them. Therefore, a group of academics set out to do something, and it was through this measure that the Notarial Archives Resources Council was set up. Luckily, we found a lot of support from private sponsors. When sponsors used to come to the archives, they immediately realized that this is an invaluable treasure and they wanted to help. Our main sponsor was HSBC. Through our sponsor, I could ultimately employ qualified book and paper conservators. Once these were employed, we could start serious work on the collection itself, in the sense that before we couldn't actually work on the documents because obviously I am not a book and paper conservator, so I thought it best to leave the project in professional hands. Ultimately, our aim for the archives are to set up a center of excellence in research and conservation through lecturing, through a conservation hub as well. And we are sure that we will get there because, as I say, we try to instill passion in all that we do. We try to instill passion in our researchers and our volunteers and anyone who comes to visit the archives. Therefore, we are sure that through planning, because planning is very important, planning, ultimately financial backing from the government and from the private sector, we will set up this pilot project wherein we will showcase our archives as one of the best preserved, best kept, and also a center of excellence for research and conservation.